And it's time
for the Horror Guys again.
Yay!
Yay! Episode 276 of the Horror Guys. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies. Yay!
This is the one where we do 35 movies and 62 shorts?
No. 4 movies and a short.
Oh, just
and
like every week.
A brief mention of 2 bonus movies.
Yeah.
One of which is not really horror, but it stars Peter Lorre.
I don't think either of them are really horror.
Okay.
But we'll get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do we have this week?
Well, it must be spring. There's no new horror this week.
I couldn't find any decent new horror movies to watch.
It is kind of a dry period of new things.
Yeah, we're caught up pretty much from all the 2023 movies, and there's a couple of things come out in 2024 that we've seen.
New stuff coming, but no new stuff currently.
Yeah.
So
it's time to drag the bottom of the barrel.
Into the archives. We watched the 5th Saw movie, which was actually Saw 3D: The Final Chapter.
Oh, and then they stopped making them?
And then they didn't make any more after that, right? Well, just ignore those others that they've made after that.
It wasn't in 3D either.
It wasn't actually in 3D for us, yeah. But it was in theaters in 3D. And you could tell sometimes some of the things obviously coming right at the screen.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. And we're going to stop in on Johnny Depp and Tim Burton with 2012's Dark Shadows, which was really spoofy. It was really lighthearted and fun. It certainly had the horror elements of a body count, and then we'll watch a contender, what Brian says might be the worst movie of all time, with Dead Sea. And then we'll cleanse our palate with the quite good stalker movie, Cold Creek Manor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then over on our weekly newsletter, we've got a couple of bonus reviews that we're not going to read for you here. We've got a couple of old Peter Lorre movies. The reason for that is over at our new project, Hourlongpress.com, we've got a free biography of Peter Lorre, which as we speak, it's still not free because Amazon is just being very slow this week for some reason. Mm-hmm. So we will link to it in the show notes. Keep an eye on it. I don't know when it's going to be free because Amazon is just being ridiculously... Usually they put these things on like within 6 or 7 hours. It's been on since Tuesday, and it's not actually available yet. The best way to find out is to go over to hourlongpress.com and sign up for the notification newsletter. And when it finally eventually will go free, we'll send out a notification and you can get it then. Uh-huh. But Peter Lorre, he's really cool.
He is.
There's songs about Peter Lorre.
There is.
A very catchy song about Peter Lorre, actually. And you can read about him in the book when it becomes available.
Yep.
But anyway, because of the book that should have been out a couple of days ago and isn't, we're looking at The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1932.
And you might have heard of this as a more famous version with James Stewart that was in the mid-50s.
This is not that one. This is the original. The James Stewart one was a remake.
Hitchcock did it twice. Yeah,
he remade his own movie.
His early days, he did 1932's, The Man Who Knew Too Much. And you can see, I think, it was more of a Hitchcock film the second time around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with the suspense.
He hadn't quite picked up all his style tricks yet.
He wasn't Hitchcock yet. But it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and the second one didn't have Peter Lorre, so...
Right. Yeah, poo on that.
And then 1941's The Maltese Falcon, also with Humphrey Bogart.
Which was pretty darn awesome. I'd never seen this all the way through.
It's a classic for a reason.
Stuff. Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
This was Peter Lorre's favorite of his own films.
I can see why. He was really good in it.
It didn't win any awards, I don't think.
I don't think so.
It was up for quite a few,
Nominated
but didn't
for
win
stuff.
anything, which is odd.
Yeah, it was a good one, though.
Considering it's, one of the most imitated movies ever.
Yeah, very noir.
Okay, so anyway, sign up for the email list over at hourlongpress.com, and once a week, or whenever the books actually eventually make it out, we will send you an email saying, hey, go pick up a book for free on Amazon. And if you're into paperbacks, it is actually available in paperback right now for some reason. Usually the ebooks come on first and the paperback comes on later. This week, I don't know. Amazon they're being vague. What is the deal? Well.
And I just realized that I misspoke in our introduction. Saw 3D is not the 5th movie. It is the 7th. in the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might want to fix that.
It's confusing not having it didn't really have a number when it was released. They just
That's
called
right.
It,
We saw 5 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Saw 3D, the final chapter was the title of it. Yeah. Anyway, we're still going to talk about it.
We will, and let's talk about it right now. Saw 3D, the final chapter from 2010, a.k.a. Saw VII, which stands for 7 in most people's way of looking at it.
Yeah, it does.
Directed by Kevin Greitert, written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, stars Tobin Bell, who's in it for all of like a minute.
Yeah, he's definitively dead, but he still manages to pop up in these movies.
Also, Costas Mandylor, Betsy Russell, and Carrie Elways, back from the first movie. 1 hour, 30 minutes. Trailer in the show notes if you're confused and don't remember which one this is, because they do kind of all run together with their names.
A little bit. Can I say spoiler-free?
You can say the spoiler-free.
Well, this one continues on from the previous film, number 6, and it also goes back to events following the first film, and it fills in some more details of the whole story. So John is gone, he's dead, definitively, but the things he set in motion still continue, and the people that he teamed up with are still at it. And this was actually quite good. Consistent in quality with most of the other sequels. If you liked those, you'll probably like this one too.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think this was as good as the others. I think it took a big step down here.
Oh, see, I thought this
I mean, it's the same story
okay.
continuing, so we're in the same little universe there.
I liked getting more. Yeah.
Well, more is fine, but
Yeah.
I think the traps were a little more contrived, and I think they were really stretching for a story here.
No, I disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked this one. Yeah, it kind of had a slightly different element with the main guy, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, he appears in a flashback.
Yeah.
With his hat on backwards, so he's younger.
Oh, John,
It's a meme.
Yeah.
Well, we open to a flashback to the end of the first film as the credits roll. Dr. Gordon, Carrie Elways from the first movie, crawls out of the big bathroom, lacking his foot and bleeding profusely. He cauterizes the wound by burning it on a hot water pipe, which looks like a lot of fun.
That looked really painful.
Ow.
Yeah.
Well, then we cut to a big home renovation display out in the middle of the town square, but this one has 2 guys chained to a saw contraption. It's a very elaborate, very public thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a girl suspended above the saw. Billy the puppet rides in on his bike. Where'd he come from in that crowd?
Oh, he was inside the chamber.
Okay.
He was inside the box.
And he talks to Brad and Ryan about how the girl played both of them. There's a huge crowd outside watching the whole thing as the saws spin up. Only 2 of the 3 people are getting out of this. It's a very toxic love triangle, we're told. And she yells that she loves Brad, so Ryan pushes the saw into him. There's a lot of yelling, and the guys figure out that she was playing them both and is still trying to do that. I think we're breaking up with you, Tina, says one of them, as she's lowered onto the blade. And suddenly, every cop in town shows up at that point.
They were slow arriving.
You know, they could have
then
shot
they
out
all
that
got
window
there.
if they'd have got there like 2 seconds earlier.
Yeah, and there wasn't enough of a, I guess the stunned audience, the stunned people thinking, oh, it's not real or something. But
Yeah.
But there was a whole lot of just standing around saying, oh, my God, someone should do something about this.
And this is another weakness of this story, I think. We don't know what these people are. Why are these people in this trap? Why does John care? Who are they?
This wasn't John's work at this point.
Well, okay.
But somebody's or sometime or.
How do they tie into anything but the story?
They didn't.
They're just random murder victims.
It was a good, 3D bloody gory opening with
Oh,
traps.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We get a flashback to the previous film where Jill puts Hoffman into the jaw-ripping helmet as per John's final request. He escapes with a bit of facial damage. He's no Joker, but he's halfway there.
Half Joker. Yeah.
He goes back to one of his hideouts and sews up his Joker-like face. Then he burns his fake ID cards and most of the evidence that could be used against him. Jill goes to Matt Gibson, an internal affairs cop, and she wants to talk in exchange for immunity. Meanwhile, Bobby, one of the survivors of Jigsaw's games, is in town promoting his new self-help book. He talks about finding the strength to survive and how it helped him take control of his own life afterward. Jill leaves the police station and is immediately grabbed by Hoffman, who puts her in a complicated spike car that reminds us that this is a 3D movie.
Coming at you.
There's pointy bits.
Mm-hmm.
And then she wakes up. Nope, just a nightmare. Well, a guy named Evan wakes up to hear a jigsaw recording that explains how his racist friends are going to die if he doesn't save them. He's glued to a seat in a car that's about to fall on top of his girlfriend and rip off one of his friend's jaws, and also run over another friend if he doesn't stop it. 3 in 1.
But in order to lean forward and stop it, he's got to rip the skin off his
Yeah,
back.
he's like heavily super glued to the car
to the
seat.
Yeah.
There is much screaming from all of them as the counter hits 0. And everyone dies.
Magnificently.
Well, we cut to Bobby's jigsaw support group the next day, where a victim talks about kicking her abusive husband into spinning saw blades. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, so there's been so many survivors at this point that they actually have a support group.
Remember now, John's whole modus operandi is to help people by showing them the freedom of murder.
Yes. Well,
and it works on some people.
Showing the strength that they have within themselves and so forth. Yeah.
How badly do you want to live?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for some people, it actually helped.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the victim talking about, getting freedom from her abusive husband.
Yeah.
Well, she did. Yeah.
Kicked him right into the saw blade.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby credits his wife, Joyce, for getting him through his recovery. Surprisingly, Dr. Gordon from the first film is there as well, and he calls out Bobby on his BS. He didn't appreciate his lesson.
No.
Someone then grabs Bobby on the way out of the meeting. Matt Gibson, the internal affairs guy, gets a call about the 4 people who died in the car trap at the junkyard. Hoffman left clues for Gibson personally. He puts Jill in a safe house, but Hoffman knows all about that place.
He doesn't know where it is, but he knows they've got her.
Bobby wakes up in a metal tube. Billy comes on screen and accuses Bobby of making the whole thing up. He's never been in a jigsaw trap. He just made up a story, wrote a book about it, and he's living off the profits.
Yeah, you saw it. He was drinking at the bar and saw a news story about a survivor, and he's down and out and thinking, hey, I can cash in on that. And it works for him
except Jigsaw doesn't like it.
Until he gets caught in a trap himself for real.
Well, he's in one now, and he has 1 hour to save his wife. He gets out of the spike trap easily enough, but there's a whole series of challenges ahead of him. Hoffman sends a tape to Gibson. He wants Jill for revenge. If he gets Jill, he'll stop the killings. If he doesn't, everyone's going to die.
He warns him.
Yeah. Bobby finds his publicist in a trap first. He's been fed a key that will shut off her device, but there's also a fishhook. Bobby needs to pull the key and the fishhook out of her stomach. Oh yeah, it's in her, not him.
Right, it's a woman.
Also, every time she screams, the sound-activated spikes get closer to killing her. He pulls and pulls, with blood gushing everywhere. He gets the key, but too late to save her.
He's not very good at this.
And he's like, if you just shut up, you'd be fine. But she won't stop screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he fumbles around with it. He does get the key, and he can't get it in the lock in time because his hands are all wet and messy and fail. Yeah.
Bobby flashes back to a book signing where John himself showed up. It's clear that John didn't approve of what Bobby's been doing with his stolen valor. Stolen valor.
Well, it kind of is. Yeah, same idea.
The police figure out that Bobby and his wife and his handlers are all missing. Bobby finds his lawyer in the next trap, which will pierce her eyes out. In order to free her, he needs to lift a bar that will slowly stab him as well. The higher he lifts it, the more these knives stick into his sides.
Mm-hmm.
Next, he finds his best friend blindfolded and noosed. He's suspended over a long fall, but there's a narrow bridge of planks. Bobby has to talk his blindfolded friend across the planks. They're both screaming idiots, and the key gets lost. The friend soon dies.
Yeah, like I said, he's not very good at this.
Yeah. Actually, he's pretty awful. He may be the worst Saw player of all time.
Uh-huh.
Gibson and Rogers follow a clue and go to a place where Hoffman shot a perpetrator in the back years ago. Gibson turned him in, and that went badly for Gibson. The police gave Hoffman a medal for it.
Uh-huh.
Bobby finds his wife, but he can't get to her without pulling some of his own teeth one by one.
Yeah, it's a combination lock, and the combination is engraved on his back teeth.
Ow.
He has to pull them out.
As he starts pulling, we see Gibson and the police enter the building where he was in the first spike trap. So it's just a matter of time till they catch up.
Yeah.
Bobby has finally reached his wife, but to save her, he has to actually survive the trap that he made up for his book. He has to climb up on a ladder with fish hooks stuck in him, and it's nasty.
Oh, and it's not just fish hooks. It's
No,
great big
like metal
hooks,
yes.
Engaged in the chest muscles, and hoist himself up by his chest muscles.
Bobby admits to her that he made the whole story up. Gibson closes in on Hoffman, but it turns out it's a trick. There's no one there. There's a booby-trap machine gun that kills them all, just like he promised.
He was warned.
Back in the warehouse, additional traps start killing all the police there. Across town, Hoffman opens up a body bag. He's escaped to the morgue. He kills the people working there and then goes through the police station, killing everyone in his path.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few cops left at this point.
Yeah, he really meant it when he said he was going to kill everybody to get to Jill.
Bobby puts the hooks through his chest muscles, screaming the whole time. He then hoists himself up to the roof to plug two wires together. His chest rips apart, and he falls before he can connect the wires.
Fail again.
Ow.
Yeah.
Should have been a little deeper.
That was a really visceral looking one. Ow. Yeah.
Hoffman makes his way to where Jill is being held, and she stabs him in the neck and runs off, but all the doors are locked. Bobby watches as his wife is enclosed in an oven and starts to cook alive. He's just really not very good at solving these traps to save people.
No, he's not.
Meanwhile, Hoffman beats the crap out of Jill and finally puts her in that jaw machine and sets the timer. Unlike him, it does rip her head apart.
Graphically. Wow,
Yeah.
that was an especially...
In 3D, no less.
That was an especially juicy one.
Hoffman then makes his escape after blowing up his last hideout. As promised, he killed everyone to get to Jill. On his way out, Hoffman is captured by Dr. Gordon and some men in pig masks. Remember them?
Mm-hmm.
We get a flashback to John leaving Gordon a special message. John helped him heal and replaced his missing foot. Turns out he's been working with John all along. You gotta have a twist. You always gotta have a twist.
Tying up them loose ends.
Hoffman wakes up in the big bathroom, where Gordon has him chained to the wall, just like he was so long ago. Gordon takes the hacksaw away, though. I don't think so. Gordon leaves him there, chained to the wall in the dark. Game over. Boom, and he shuts the door.
All right.
Well, Bobby may be the worst player in the whole franchise. He didn't save a single person. Some of the early deaths are simply excuses for neat murder devices, but don't have a whole lot to do with the overarching plot.
Yeah, that first trio. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't watch the 3D version, but most of the deaths are very splattery, so that's what that's all about.
And that first one, it's a little vague, too, of what time that took place. That could have been an old one that John did himself.
We don't know. Yeah, it's unrelated to anything.
Yeah, it seems unlikely that Hoffman or Jill would have done that. So I'm leaning toward it's one from the past.
Did Jill ever kill anybody? Was she the killer at some point? I don't remember that.
She was.
She was an accomplice, sort of.
She was involved in some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going with it's an old trap that we saw that John did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this one is only loosely connected to the previous films, as John and Jigsaw is dead by this time. John only appears in a brief flashback, and even Hoffman doesn't show up very much. Dr. Gordon makes a comeback, which ties things up right at the end.
And then there's more movies to come, too.
Yeah, it was good, but I do think it was a step down from previous.
Oh, I don't think so. I disagree. I liked it.
All right, well, it's worth watching.
Oh, for sure.
Which takes us to our next movie, Dark Shadows from 2012. That's 12 years old already.
Wow.
Saw that at the theater when it came out.
Time flies. No, I saw it later. I didn't see it at the theater.
I'm sure you saw it at the theater.
We saw it at the theater.
Yes.
Anyway. Oh, that's right.
I would not pass up Dark Shadows in the theater.
Okay.
I am a major Dark Shadows fan.
I never was.
I watched it when I was like 5. Before. I'm not even sure if I was in school at the time. It was on in the afternoons.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, it was a soap opera of sorts. And it started out as just a regular...
Well, not of sorts.
Well, okay, an outright soap opera. And it started out just, mundane, ordinary people having their ordinary drama. And then they
For a
decided...
year, it was just a typical soap opera with, your romances and cheating spouses and all that kind of stuff.
And it goes
the
way
ratings
back. It was in black and white originally.
Yeah, 65 or something like that. And it was not doing well in the ratings.
So let's add a vampire to liven things up. And we'll add some, a werewolf and some witchery and witches and ghosts. And they had all kinds of magic stuff going on.
And it was a major hit until it was done.
And it ran for decades. And,
Well, not that long.
Okay,
a long time.
Not decades, but many years. Yeah, hundreds of episodes. Yeah.
And then in the 90s, they rebooted it with a well, it wasn't really a mini-series. It was like one season of a series. Ben Cross was the vampire.
Barnabas Collins.
And you never saw that one, you said.
I didn't, no.
I liked it.
I barely saw the original.
I mean, It was basically the same story as the original, but it was in color and it had a much bigger budget. It was good, but I guess that the ratings just weren't there.
I had some of the comic books. Quite a few of the comic books.
I had some. I think I may still have one or two of the comic books. But in 2012, Tim Burton decided it was time for a remake.
Reboot. Yeah.
Written by Seth Grahame-Smith and John August, and Dan Curtis got credit for the original. Stars Johnny Depp, Michelle Pfeiffer, Helena Bonham Carter, and Ava Green. Hour and 53 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. And I suppose the biggest departure from the original is this one is quite a bit of comedy in it.
Very funny, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still got all the same plot elements, but it's mostly played for laughs.
It's very dark, though. I mean, like the title, it's Dark Shadows.
And when I went to see it the first time, I absolutely detested it because they took my beloved scary soap opera and made it into
funny.
A comedy.
Yes, but it does have a pretty decent body count.
Yeah, well, this time through, I knew what I was getting, and I liked it a lot more.
Yeah. Well, spoiler-free, tell us about it.
This was strange, funny, and horrifying all at the same time, as Tim Burton is able to manage in his direction. It's based on a years-long soap opera, and they managed to make a story fitting into movie length very nicely. Yeah, this went on for like years and years, and this was a 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm. They crammed a lot into it.
The cast and effects are good, and we both enjoyed it more on the second viewing than we did the first time we saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't care for it the first time either?
Not as much. I didn't dislike it as much as you did because I didn't have that history of liking the original.
Oh, it looks good. It's well made. It is funny, but
liked it better the second time.
Not taking my favorite vampire seriously.
Okay.
All right, well, what happens?
Well, it's Liverpool in 1760. Young Barnabas Collins and Angelique, their children, board a ship to come to America. And a year later, the family is rich and powerful in Collinsport, Maine. The family built a huge mansion, Collingwood. Years pass, and grown Barnabas and Angelique have sex, but he admits he doesn't love her. And so she does what any reasonable woman would do. She puts a curse on his parents and kills them.
Oops.
Yeah, by way of magic. Well, meanwhile, Barnabas falls in love with Josette, which in turn causes Angelique to curse Barnabas himself. When Josette is possessed, jumps off a cliff to her death. And Barnabas, too, jumps to his death to follow her, except he doesn't die when he lands. And that's a painful landing. I mean,
splat.
Splat. Except he gets back up again because he's been cursed to be a vampire. Angelique and the town people then take Barnabas and bury him alive in a coffin wrapped in chains. And now we fast forward to 1972. Credits roll. Maggie Evans takes a train to
Okay, and that's
Collinsport.
pretty much all played straight.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
pretty much.
horror movie stuff there. There's no comedy at that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but 72 happens, and Barnabas is 200 years old.
Uh-huh.
Comedy ensues.
Yeah. Maggie Evans takes a train to Collinsport, and we see it's the same actress as Josette. So she decides she's traveling along, and we don't know she's Maggie Evans at that point. She decides to take the name Victoria Winters. She just kind of randomly
I don't
picks it.
remember what the point of that from the original series is. I think they were twins or something, played by the same actress, or maybe I don't remember. Maybe her name changed. I don't remember why. It makes absolutely no point to this movie other than they got both names in.
Okay. All right. Well, she's going to be the new governess at the Collins place. Willie Loomis answers the door. He's only one of two servants. And the other is a very slow-moving old woman who has a very, I loved her part. She never says anything, but she just keeps popping up, doing these little amusing bits, like off to the side, and you'll see her crossing the screen. Or the one time they're cleaning up the yard, and she goes zipping past on a riding mower, and just the way she keeps popping up. So anyway, the house is pretty run down. Victoria meets Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, who shows her around. Victoria is there to work with David, who has not taken his mother's death 3 years ago very well. Carolyn is the oldest daughter. Roger is Elizabeth's brother and David's father. Dr. Julia Hoffman is there, too. She's David's psychiatrist and pretty much a live-in. David swears his mother still talks to him. So we got the ghost set up there. Well, that night, Victoria does see Josette's ghost. I'm coming, she warns.
He's coming.
Oh, he's coming, she warns, yes.
Who could that be?
Well, outside of town, men are digging to build a new McDonald's.
And they've got this big light-up McDonald's sign before they even dig the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, they find a coffin where there shouldn't be one, and it's all chained shut. Well, let's cut the bolts and see what's inside. And that goes badly for all of them.
Whatever's inside is really hungry.
Yeah, he's been, and the deaths are all kind of off screen and subtle, but there's blood splatters. But he basically devours the entire crew. And Barnabas, now freed and well fed, walks through the woods and finds weirdness like paved roads and a car.
What is this?
Yeah, he's really out of touch, which lends a lot of the
most of the humor in the movie
Yeah.
comes from that.
Yeah, he's dealing with the modern world suddenly.
The modern world of 1972, which
Right.
is funny in itself.
Which is about, almost 200 years, that he's been out of touch. The town has changed a lot since he was there last. He eventually makes his way home to Collingwood, which has not been well maintained. He's not happy about that. Barnabas talks to the servant Willie and hypnotically enslaves him. So Barnabas and Willie walk through the big house, which confuses Carolyn and David. Elizabeth questions him, and he looks just like that ancient painting over the fireplace. Yes, resemblance, family resemblance, yes. Well, she tells him that she knows about the original Barnabas's death.
What she knows. She doesn't know the true story.
Yeah. Well, Barnabas says that he's the same man and a vampire. Still, he promises not to harm any of them because they're family.
And she believes this, and she's okay with that because weirdness.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Well, Barnabas then opens a secret door that they haven't found all these years, where all his treasures are stored. And there's just a mass of stuff. In the morning, he meets the rest of the family. Elizabeth knows what he's all about, but the others kind of think he's a loon. They talk about the family business, which was a fishing business that has fallen to decline over the years, and how it's not what it used to be, but Barnabas is going to fix that.
He's got lots of money locked away down there, and the family is mostly broke at this point.
And he's going to get things going again.
Yeah.
Well, then Vicky walks into the room, and she looks exactly like Josette, which, of course, Barnabas notices immediately. The Collins business competitor, Angel Bay, is run by Angelique. She's used her witchery to keep herself alive and young and beautiful all these years. Who knows? She knows what happened in the cemetery last night. She drives right over to Collingswood. I mean, she just immediately figures out who it was and, why this crew died and, heads right over there. Well, Willie's not smart enough to lie about Barnabas being there. They wake up Barnabas, and he recognizes her too. Yep, they're both immortal, and she quickly puts him in his place. Well, Barnabas is kind of depressed, and Elizabeth gives a really odd pep talk.
It works.
It did work, though. He immediately begins renovation on the decrepit old house, and we get a comedic montage of Barnabas learning the 21st century.
Actually, it's still the 20th century. It's 72, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. He meets up with Clarney, an old Angel Bay fisherman, about a fishing contract. And who was that?
Is Christopher Lee, by the way.
Yeah, in a brief
A
cameo.
very small role.
Yeah, but it was fun seeing him there. He hypnotizes him to work for the Collins Company. Well, Julia hypnotizes Barnabas, the doctor, and learns the truth. And it's funny because, Barnabas is like, oh, I can't be hypnotized. And like he just immediately falls into this deep trance, spills every complete detail. And so the Julia comes storming in. She, that was a funny scene too. She comes storming into Elizabeth's office. So a vampire? Really? You let a vampire in the house? Well, Julia begins to work on a serum to cure Barnabas, and she's transfusing his blood, and she's going to cure him of vampirism. Angelique and Barnabas talk about their businesses. She wants to buy theirs, and he refuses. She still wants to get back together with him, but he's revolted, yet also aroused. And they have some rough supernatural sex that really tears up our office.
Very rough.
Oh, yeah. Well, Vicky has a weird nightmare followed by another Josette sighting. Julia looks sick at breakfast, where Barnabas demands that the family throw a ball. They can get Alice Cooper to perform. And Julia, she's a chronic alcoholic, and everybody thinks she's just hungover in the morning. She's got sunglasses. She's looking pale. Well, the party is really something. A de-aged Alice Cooper performs.
They had Alice Cooper in 1972, by the way.
They did. Oh, yeah,
he was really, really old.
He was the
maybe
real
he's
thing.
a vampire.
Maybe. Yeah. Barnabas calls him the ugliest woman I've ever seen. This Alice Cooper. Vicky says it feels like she's known Barnabas forever. I've lost my place.
She tells him a story.
Oh, yes, there it is. Oh, she tells him a story about her own family locked her up for being psychic, and she's always been able to see ghosts. It was Josette's ghost that pointed out the ad for the governess position. Barnabas figures out that Julia's not trying to take his blood to make him immortal. She's using it to make herself immortal. So he sucks her dry in anger. And he and Willie dump her body in the ocean. Barnabas then finds Roger searching for his treasure and talks him into leaving town. Not long after, the whole family sees Barnabas for what he really is. Angelique threatens to kill Vicky if Barnabas doesn't join her. He refuses, so she puts him back in his coffin and drives out of town, magically making the Collins fishery explode on the way out. And she then leaves him in the family crypt. Well, luckily, little David opens the coffin 20 minutes later. His dead mother told him to do it. So Angelique goes to the sheriff, plays a recording of Barnabas admitting being a killer, and an angry mob descends on Collingwood, led up by Angelique, who's getting everybody fired up. Barnabas agrees to go with the mob, but first he bites Angelique, and that reveals her as a witch. So the sheriff sends the mob home.
Oh, well, that's okay then. Everybody just leaves.
Yeah, it's like, oh, she's a witch too. Okay, well, we'll just, But the two immortals face off. Elizabeth's got a shotgun, and Carolyn is revealed to be a werewolf. This family was messed up before Barnabas showed up. He may be the normal one. Well, Carolyn jumps on Angelique, but she can't do that much. She does slow her down a little bit. Angelique admits tormenting the family for generations. David walks in and warns her to leave now or his mother will get her. David's dead mother does show up, and she's not happy. The house catches on fire, and Barnabas and Angelique have a final conversation about love and curses before she dies. For real. During all this, Vicky has walked through the woods up to the same cliff that Josette jumped off. And this time, Barnabas catches her on the way down. She jumps anyway, and he bites her on the way, turning her into a vampire too just in time.
Happy ending.
And we get a final glimpse of Julia waking up under the ocean.
She's a vampire now.
She's a vampire, and she's not dead there.
All right. Well, as we said, Christopher Lee has a cameo as Clarney, the old fishing captain. It's not much of a role, but he was 90 at that point, so it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
4 members of the original cast, Lara Parker, who played Angelique, Jonathan Frid, who played Barnabas, David Selby, who played Quentin, and Catherine Lee Scott as Maggie Evans, join in the ballroom scene. Basically, they walk in the front door together as a group, and that's pretty much it.
They're guests.
It takes the original drawn-out soap opera and makes it a modern comedy. As I said, we saw this when it came out and was offended that they took our favorite soap opera and demeaned it so badly. In the original, Barnabas was an older guy, and he was kind of creepy looking, and you could believe that he could kill you. He's a real vampire looking. Johnny Depp, he's just funny looking.
He looks too huggable.
He's too young. He's too good looking. He's just, he's not menacing at all.
No. And yet, he could be. I mean, he was lethal.
In a Johnny Depp kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, this time around, we knew what we were going to get, and we liked it quite a bit for what it was. I'd be all in for an ongoing series of this. At the end, I still wanted more.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think we're going to get it.
No, it's
The special effects hold up really well, and the cast is excellent. It's essentially the same setup as the original story, but instead of going on for years, it all gets wrapped up fairly quickly, something the original never did. I don't think it ever really ended. It just sort of stopped one day.
Stopped, yeah.
All right, which takes us to our short film of the week, 2024's Ice Trays. Nothing scarier than ice trays.
Well, they make them.
And this one is by Deformed Lunchbox. Doesn't really specify the director or the writer. It stars Jacqueline Porter, Miranda Rose, and Abby Schulzberg. It's 3 minutes and 50 seconds, less than 4 minutes. So you got to watch this one. There's a link to YouTube in the show notes. What happens?
Well, a woman takes an ice tray from the fridge, but the ice is red. She asks her daughter about it silently. There's actually no dialogue in it.
Nope.
Yeah, pantomimes, but she doesn't know. She just kind of shrugs. Well, the woman then tries tasting one of the ice cubes.
And the rest is spoiler territory.
It's nice to see a wholesome family video where everybody gets along and is generally happy. Grandpa, however, is a messy drinker.
He's drinking this lemonade in this vibrating massage chair, and he is just the worst slob ever.
Well, pink lemonade. It's very nice. There's no dialogue, and it's always clear what's happening. The cinematography and sound are really good. The music is appropriate, and it's very funny. I was so delighted with this.
Kevin watched it right before we started recording, and he giggled through the whole thing.
I did, because it's so short, and there's so little to it, but it's so well done. It is so hilarious, and so yeah, this is one I really recommend.
Which takes us to Dead Sea from 2014, written and directed by Brandon Slagle, stars Britt Griffith, Alex Lacono, J.W. Wiseman, and Devani Penn. Hour and 30 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Was this one of your dollar store DVDs?
It was.
It was, yes. Okay.
I bought this at the dollar store.
Oh, God.
Well,
spoiler-free.
Let me say spoiler-free. This starts out with a lake monster, and then it goes to soldiers in the desert years later, and then some characters do stuff, and then there's more lake monsters, and characters do more stuff. So it's kind of disjointed. But
Lots of stuff happening.
It comes together eventually.
No.
It's not very well done, and we didn't enjoy it at all.
So you agree that it was horrid?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as say horrid. But I didn't have the hatred for it like you did. I'd give it a 5.
I have hatred for very few films like this one.
The low side of 5, like maybe a 4.5. I'm not going to say I outright loathed it, and because people worked hard on it.
We watched Plan 9 from Outer Space, and we both had fun with it. We watched I don't know what else. The Killer Shrews, and we both kind of liked that. They're fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is trash.
Night of the Lepus.
Night of the Lepus, yes.
That's another good example of awful movies that are still fun.
Legendarily awful movies that are still fun.
This had that element of awfulness.
This wasn't
fun.
But
it lacked the fun.
California, 1983. We watch a tearful farewell as a young father leaves his wife and child before taking a canoe out to feed himself to an unseen sea monster. All right, some kind of sacrifice thing. We've seen that before, but it works.
Uh-huh.
In the Middle East, 2002. Soldiers shoot at the locals and interrogate prisoners. They incorporate all the cliches of a desert warfare movie, and this goes on for a very long time and seems to have nothing to do with a sea monster. Why are we watching all this desert war drama?
Because one of the soldiers is from that town.
But we don't know this. It's just soldiers. We don't know who any of these characters are at this point.
We find that out later. Yeah.
Well, one of the soldiers asks another about what happened to his father in 1983. As one does.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to your father in 1983, Kevin?
I don't remember specifically.
Well, why would I ask this in the first place?
He was just hanging out at home, probably.
The soldier explains that the monster shows up every 30 years to feed. How did the other soldier know anything happened? Why did the subject of a sea monster come up in the middle of a desert battle? Because the script said so.
Because dialogue.
We cut to a woman talking about a dig site, and then we switch to a hairy hillbilly in bed marking days off a calendar. The woman with the dig is named Victoria, and she's a heavy drinker. There's some stuff between drug dealers who act sad after murdering a guy. Does any of this tie together at this point? Nope. It's just a whole bunch of... No.
Very, very
At this
loosely.
point, it's different scenes.
Actually, at this point, you don't know.
There's no tie together.
Yeah.
This thing happened, and this thing happened, and this thing happened, and we don't know why.
Totally disjointed. Yeah.
We cut to a bunch of young people on a pontoon boat in the summer. One of them is named Ariel. We cut back and forth between young people in bikinis and that hillbilly guy talking to a guy named Castor. Castor watches the young people with his binoculars. The young people jump in the water, and everything gets dark and creepy. All of a sudden, everyone in the water is bloody and dead. We don't know what happened. They're just dead. Castor watches it all, but doesn't react. He rows to the pontoon boat in his canoe and looks around. Later, Ariel wakes up on the shore. Victoria gets a phone call from some guy who wants her to check out a report of dead fish on the lake shore. He called her because she's familiar with the area. The reports are similar to those from 1983 and 1953. And we're like an hour into this movie at this point, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. At least the halfway point.
I think 45 minutes was that desert battle.
Okay.
Some woman mumbles about some stuff. I just don't ask.
Yeah.
The hillbilly marks another day off his calendar. One of the drug dealers has flashbacks to that desert thing. Until this point, we didn't realize it was the same guy. And we don't know this because no one has talked to the guy since the beginning of the movie.
And no one told us this.
I started browsing Reddit while rolling my eyes at this thing. And I'll stop back in if something happens in this.
And you didn't stop.
Oh, there's a story from Reddit. There's a story from Reddit. Ooh, here, look at this story from Reddit. Anyway, okay.
At this point, Brian checked out.
So anyway, Victoria and the drug soldier, whose name is Keir, turns out they know each other, and that hillbilly guy is Victoria's father, Callan. We're nearly an hour into this, and I finally figured out who these characters are. Random crap happens for an hour, and then finally we find out they're all sort of related. Ariel tells Victoria that there's a sea monster in the man-made reservoir. Some other guys, everybody's just some other guys.
Pretty much.
They all say the offering must be a native. Ariel says Victoria needs to be the sacrifice because she's from here. She's local. Well, there's running and screaming and men walking slowly with guns. Somehow, chasing Victoria through caves in the desert has something to do with a sea monster. Eventually, Callum decides to be the sacrifice so that Victoria can leave town, and it's over. Okay. They have desert caves next to this lake.
Mm-hmm.
And hillbillies.
And
drug dealers and soldiers.
Former soldiers.
Okay.
And a sea monster that pops up.
Oh, yeah, there is a sea monster, I guess, yeah.
On a regular cycle and must be appeased.
Well, it's like the director had a bunch of random footage and then just decided to throw it all together and call it a film. It started out making no sense, and then just got worse and worse as it went along, seemingly without any limit to the worsening. The acting is atrocious all around. The direction is atrocious. The story and the plot are atrocious. The sound design is atrocious. The special effects are atrocious. The lighting, well, you get the idea. This is just terrible, terrible, terrible. If you see this DVD in the bottom of the bin at the dollar store, do the world a favor and buy all the copies they have. Go outside, run them over with your car, and then wash your hands to get the stink off. Kevin's addendum. Oh, you read your addendum there.
I did get the DVD from the bin at the dollar store. I apologize to Brian and all of you for the damage I unknowingly inflicted.
Yes, if you have this movie on your DVD shelf at home, don't watch it. Don't watch it.
Yeah, we can't recommend it.
Send it to that relative you don't like.
I don't have the absolute hatred for it that Brian does, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It was a very poorly made movie.
We're both in agreement on you don't have to watch it. It's okay.
Cold Creek Manor from 2003, directed by Mike Figgis, written by Richard Jeffries, stars Dennis Quaid, Sharon Stone, Stephen Dorff, and Juliette Lewis. 1 hour and 59 minutes. It's a long one. 2 hours almost.
Uh-huh.
Spoiler free, it's a mystery thriller with horror elements. We suspect early on the way things are gone ahead, and it pulls things along nicely as the details are filled in. It's a very strong cast with a decent story. We liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought it
It's got
pretty
its
darn
tense
good.
moments, but I would really call it more thriller than horror.
Yeah, I would too.
Unless you want to call a stalker a horror movie. But it was good. We liked it.
Yeah, well, there's snakes, and it's got horror elements.
Some.
But, yeah.
All right, well, what happens?
Well, we open on Cooper and Leah Tilson in New York City. She's got to fly off to a business trip, and he oversleeps. So he's rushing around. The kids, Kristen and Jesse, are late for school. And Kristen is actually Kirsten Stewart in a very young role.
She's like 10 here. I didn't know she did anything before
She was
Twilight.
looking
But
mighty
she
young
did.
here. Yeah. Well, it's all very annoying and hectic as they rush around, and son Jesse ends up getting hit by a car. But he'll be okay. We've got to get out of this city, Cooper complains.
And he gets hit because Dennis Quaid is sitting in his car, talking on his phone in a no parking zone, and the guy behind him gets mad and goes around him. And then Dennis Quaid blames the city because he wouldn't move his car.
Plus the boy who doesn't seem to understand the concept of
Don't move out between parked cars.
go out between cars and
Look both ways.
and don't cross the street like that.
City living is hard if
I
you're
guess.
stupid.
I guess.
It's even harder when you're stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Well, they sell their house in the city, plan to buy an old foreclosure way out in the country. It's a big place. And they get directions to a place. It's called Cold Creek Manor from Ruby, who works at the nearby gas station diner store. It's like all in one. It's a very, very small town. Not
It's
much at
the
all
business.
to the town.
It is the town.
It is the town, basically. Everything is there in this one business. It turns out to be an old deserted mansion. And so they let themselves in to explore. Seems to be, they think it's okay to go in and look around. It's for sale, and they're thinking of buying it. Well, it's full of old books and things. Looks like the people who lived there just left it all. It's really run down, but it is full of stuff and personal belongings. Well, they end up liking the place, and the local sheriff comes and makes them leave. She didn't realize the place was on the market, and she says, well, for now, just get out of here. Well, they do, in fact, end up buying the house and move in. It's a big property, too. Well, they sell a lot of the old antiques inside the house and plan to renovate. Looks like the previous owners left in a hurry. There's still a lot of stuff that they come across. Well, the family goes to Pinsky's, that local restaurant, and meets the owners. They've lived in this little town for many years. Ruby and her friends overhear the entire conversation. Cooper buys their horse for the kids. Cooper mentions that he's a documentary filmmaker, and he's looking into the history of the family that used to live in the house.
Would you watch a documentary about a family who used to live in a house that somebody just bought?
It just seems like such
It's a stretch.
mundane topic. Yeah, it's an old house and an old family.
These people had the house and they moved out suddenly. Let's make a movie about that.
And there's a lot of people, but nothing noteworthy. There was no big news stories or anything controversial that he knows about. Just
And what we do
it's
find
an
out,
old house and an old family.
yeah, the old man went to a nursing home and the younger guy went to jail, and let's make a movie.
But he didn't even know that at this time.
No, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's an excuse for a documentary filmmaker to be researching.
It
basically.
is.
He's
Yeah.
a research guy now.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. Okay.
And it's alluded to that he's had some success as with past documentaries, that he's well known and he's done pretty well with this. Well, they find a man who has entered their house. He says his name is Dale Massey, and he used to live there. He invites himself for dinner, and it's all kind of awkward. He admits that he didn't keep up with the payments, and the bank repossessed the place. He just got out of jail after 3 years, and he needs a job. And they feel kind of sorry for him, and could they use him as a handyman? And
Just say no. Just say no.
The Tilsons are a little bit creeped out, but they hire him to clean up and get the pool running. Dale goes to see Ruby right afterwards. They are very close. Later, Dale explains how he used to kill animals on the farm in the old days.
Whack him on the forehead with a hammer.
Yeah, it's these big spike hammer things. Well, there's one of the tools missing off the wall display. Within a few days, Dale has the pool working and he's moved on to other projects. He kind of flirts with Leah, and Cooper's not happy about it. The sheriff asks Cooper about Dale. The sheriff is Ruby's sister. Dale's father is still alive, living in a nearby nursing home. So Cooper goes to see the old man, who has dementia. All his livestock, 10,000 sheep, got hoof and mouth disease, and he had to kill them all with those hammers. He gets really upset when he learns that Cooper bought his house.
A small role for Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, it is. In the morning, we see that there are snakes all over the house, but no one notices them right away. And they all find the snakes at about the same time, and chaos ensues. Lots of snakes. Whole family ends up on the roof, and there's snakes there too. Well, Dale comes to the rescue with a couple of his friends, but Cooper finds that kind of suspicious. Thinks Dale put all the snakes in the house.
Those snakes weren't there yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cooper fires Dale, but Leah doesn't see anything wrong with Dale. Ray Pinsky warns Cooper not to alienate the town, so Cooper buys drinks for everyone at the bar. Even Ruby warns Cooper about Dale. And Dale, at the bar, ends up punching Ruby, getting into a bar fight as Cooper watches. The sheriff breaks it up, but Dale doesn't look that impressed. And this culminates with Dale chasing Cooper home in his car. In the morning, they find their horse dead in the swimming pool.
On the way home last night at the chase, Cooper runs into a deer or a sheep or something on the road and bashes in his headlight.
Uh-huh.
And in the morning, the horse is dead, and of course everybody blames him for hitting the horse.
Yeah, and were you drinking? Well, yeah, but, and so, yeah, it looks bad. Yeah, from the damage, they assume that he did it while he was drunk. He blames Dale, but Leah doesn't believe him. Leah wants to go back to the city, but they can't afford to move out. The sheriff suggests, maybe exactly the same thing.
They had this very expensive apartment in New York City that they sold for a lot of money, but they spent it all on this big plantation farm and renovations.
Uh-huh.
They can't afford to leave.
Dale confronts the family publicly when he finds out Cooper is making a movie about his family. It's clear he's not quite right in the head. But at this point, one thought that I had and had up to this point, there's all this personal stuff. Dale was, formerly living there only a few years ago. It's family photos and family history and all this stuff from the family that belongs to Dale. And Cooper knows this. And
He doesn't really anymore. He bought it with the house.
Yeah, but it's personal stuff.
It would be good to give it back.
It's not historical. I mean, there's a point where things are historical. Where they're all dead.
Family photos from 4 years ago probably don't qualify.
Yeah, these are still. This is still a live person. His wife and kids. Photos of them.
The whole documentary angle is kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I would box it all up and give it to Dale, but that's kind of weird. I thought.
Actually, I think they offered to let him take anything he wanted, but he didn't want anything.
He didn't want it, but then I still wouldn't keep making the documentary with him right there in town.
Again, the documentary is just a dumb plot device.
Yeah, a little bit. It's really the only fault I have with the movie. Cooper finds a retainer buried in the driveway, along with a tooth. And then he finds a photo of one of the kids who used to live there, wearing that same retainer. Apparently, Dale's wife took the 2 kids, and he had been living there by himself. That's the story. Leah comes up behind him, and Cooper says he killed his
No,
children.
she says that.
Oh,
she's been all in on
she's
Dale at this point, sticking
Okay.
up for him, and then she sees the video of the kid with the retainer, and like she's
and
like,
the actual retainer. Yeah.
he killed his children.
He killed his children.
She's all in on the anti-Dale wagon
at
now.
that point. Okay, yep. Well, Cooper sends Leah and the kids away while he looks for more evidence. He finds a car on the property, and it belonged to Dale's missing wife. She didn't just leave town. The car is there. Well, Cooper takes what he has to the sheriff, and she says it's all circumstantial, and she knows Dale. She just can't picture him being a killer. She loans him a two-way radio while she investigates. At the hospital, Dale visits his father, and the old man knows Dale lost the farm. "You're a corrupt spawn of your whoring mother," the old man accuses. "I saw everything you did. She was leaving you and taking the kids. They weren't even your kids. What did you do with the bodies?" He's just getting really blabby.
And now we know what happened.
Yeah, and then Dale kills the old man. Cooper researches maps to figure out where the bodies might be buried, but he has no clues. He hears a noise in the kitchen and almost knocks out Leah. She knows where the bodies are hidden. Her and the kids went to New York. Apparently they were still able to get into their old place, even though they didn't own it anymore.
I think they were staying with a relative.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah. All right. But anyway, something the kids found was the Devil's Hole, which the kids found that place right after they moved in. The two of them go out into the woods, and they do find a covered well. Cooper lowers his night vision camera down into the hole. They look at the footage, and they see at least one body down there. Well, meanwhile, the sheriff is calling the dentist, and she's looking into things, working on the retainer clue. Well, something happens, and Ruby comes in to visit her sister, and the receptionist says, "I don't know, I think she stepped out." And Ruby finally figures out that the sheriff is on the floor, been clobbered. She's dead. Dale has been there. Dale comes up to Leah and pushes her into the well. Cooper returns and helps her climb back out. They walk back to the house, find their car is on fire. Dale cuts the power to the house and comes in screaming. He smashes Cooper's office with one of those animal-killing hammers, chases them through the house and up to the roof with his hammer. Well, the two men fight it out. As Dale stops to monologue, Leah and Cooper grab a rope. They swing him onto the skylight and smash it beneath him, dropping him through several stories of glass, killing him painfully and dramatically. Later, we see Ruby at Dale's grave. Cooper and his family live happily ever after at the house.
Maybe the whole deal with the skylight might be just a little contrived. It just happened to be there with that rope. And yeah, okay. Well, okay, yeah, it's pretty clear as soon as Dale shows up where this is all heading. But the mystery is in finding out why Dale is the way he is. What really happened back in the day. Again, it's really more of a thriller than a horror, but it has many horror elements and a lot of suspense. There's really not a lot to say about it. It's a mystery thriller.
And it was good, well done.
Yeah, we liked it.
Yeah, I liked it all around.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of commentary to say. It was well made.
Not perfect, but I'd give it a solid 8.
Nicely paced. We don't like the whole documentary gimmick.
Yeah. But the pacing was good. Despite it being long, it didn't seem long.
No, it moved really well.
Yeah.
Definitely worth seeing.
Yeah.
All right, and that is it for what we're going to talk about today. If you stop in over at horrorbulletin.com, you don't have to be on the email list, but if you do, you get these in your mailbox. But you can stop in there right now and read about The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1934, and also The Maltese Falcon from 1941. 2 classic black and white movies. One from Alfred Hitchcock, one from... I don't know who directed The Maltese Falcon. I should probably know that offhand.
John Huston.
Oh, yeah, right.
That was
yes.
some of his early work.
A couple of major classics from back in the day, both starring Peter Lorre. And he is a creepy little troll, that is for sure.
He is, yeah. He does manage to do that.
And if you would like a free copy of the Peter Lorre biography, it's something like 60 pages. It's one of the longer biographies, surprisingly. Stop in over at hourlongpress.com. sign up for that notification list, and we'll let you know when it becomes available. And at this point, I think there's probably something wrong over at Amazon. I may have to drop them a message. So maybe it'll be out today. Maybe it'll be next Friday at this point. I don't know what the deal is. I've never had this happen before.
Yeah, and I'm looking on Amazon as we speak, and it's still not available on Kindle.
Yeah, the paperbacks, if you want the paperback, go get it. It's there.
If you want to grab the other Kindles that are out there if you have Kindle Unlimited.
What, there's other
others.
biographies?
I'm looking at this. There's Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., Boris Karloff, and Christopher Lee biographies out there.
Whoa. I think there may be one more horror person biography coming up, but maybe not. We may be done with the horror legends biographies.
I've got one that's going to be coming out very soon. That's the history of the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner.
Is it scary?
No.
There's horror people in it?
Well, there's some war stuff. It's got a body count.
All right. So yeah, it's not just a series of horror legend biographies. That's just the way we decided to start it because you guys are into horror and we want you to try it.
But Hourlong Press, Hourlong Books is going to be all kinds of topics.
Yes, we are going to probably stop talking about Hourlong Press pretty soon because it's not going to be just horror based. But if you get on that email list there at hourlongpress.com, you'll be told every week when there's a new free book, and you take the ones you want and don't take the ones you don't want. And hey, free is free. Mm-hmm. If you're a Kindle reader, or even if you don't have a Kindle, you read them on your iPhone, read them on your Android tablet, read them on your computer if you want to. Everything out there has a Kindle app somewhere. Well, I think we beat that one into death, didn't we?
I think we did.
And no, you can't have Peter Lorre because it's still not free for some reason. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.